Well, welcome to the Gyaff. I'm so happy to finally have you. I actually, for the longest while, many people have been saying, "Oh, get Dillon from Blackwater Adventures on." So you clearly offer like such an amazing experience. I've done the tour, the sunset tour on the Kanchi River,
Yeah.
and it was amazing. But yeah, I mean, you must be really busy now.
It's been busy, and yeah, we're doing some other fun, exciting stuff as well. And yeah, it's been a long time. I think what 2 years at least since we had you out.
Yeah. Two
Maybe a
years,
little
maybe
more.
2 years.
So yeah, we've even like anything, we've definitely developed even that sunset cruise on the Kanji Creek a lot, and I've learned a lot. It's just been nice. It developed into something I never even imagined.
Yeah. So I don't think I've ever gone into depth with this with you, but how did you end up doing nature tours in Berbice? That's so crazy.
Yeah. So I'll try to keep it more or less in a nutshell, but a little bit about me first. I grew up, a lot of people are like, oh, you're from New York, right? In Guyana. Most Guyanese go to Miami, New York, maybe Minnesota. I'm not from anywhere like that. I'm from a beautiful place. I'm from the Rocky Mountains.
Okay.
Not saying there's no beauty in those places, but I'm from a truly amazing place with wildlife and landscape and just rugged, beautiful country. I'm from Idaho, if you want to look up and see what that looks like.
Nice.
So I grew up in a community where, people like to use the word like outdoorsy, and that's not even. It's just how you are, And we have that in Guyana too. When you go into different villages, especially toward the interior, it's just the way of life. It's not a thought. It's just how it is. So that's where I'm from. So coming to Guyana, actually, I kind of felt like, especially along the coast, I felt like, this is a lot like home, especially in Berbice.
How'd you end up in Berbice?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we had been married maybe a year and a half, I think it was. We were newly married, and I was working as a paramedic for a 911 fire service in Colorado, and we always knew we wanted to do volunteer work somewhere. We didn't know exactly how it was going to work out, but we kind of used that as an opportunity to look at different places. Guyana wasn't the only place we imagined. In fact, I didn't even know anything about Guyana. Guyana was just an opportunity.
Like most people.
Yeah, especially at that time. Now it's...
Well, what year was this?
That was 2012. 2012, 2013.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've been here quite a while. Not that long, but a little while. But anyway, yeah, so we came, I think, man, if you would have asked us then, would we be here 10 years later, over 10 years later, I would have never said yes. Yeah. I would have been like, yeah, probably not. No way. But at the same time, we've always kept our lives simple, and we had the freedom. And I think that even now has kind of led us to being able to do things that other people haven't. And I mean that just because of our circumstances. We're very grateful for it. But a lot of people get caught up in just the rat race of life. Mm-hmm. They do things that they're told that they have to. I'll give you an example. A lot of people are told they have to buy a house. And if they choose to do that, there's nothing wrong. There's a lot of benefits that come from it. But it's a commitment, and it ties you down in a big way, right?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't do that. And in America, especially in our area, that's a little going against the grain. But had we done that, I guarantee we wouldn't have been here. Yeah. And we've had so many amazing, rich experiences, not just outdoors, but people in Guyana, just especially in Berbice area, have just, man, we've been given so much than we've ever given. They've just looked after us and opened their hearts to us, and we've made true friends, which we're very grateful for.
Well, Guyanese, especially in like the, dare I say, countryside, are probably the best people. Between like people who live in the countryside versus Georgetown is chalk and cheese. They're so generous. They're so like willing to like give you what little they have. I say that just, I mean like just their character. I'm not saying whatever material things, just their personality is just, please just take this. Or it's my experience, and it's just salt of the earth people. No offense to Georgetown people. They're just different people.
Yeah.
But you kind of, so I imagine you just generally live a pretty simple life. I mean, that's living in Berbice. I'm just saying that because I had someone on the other day, and like, she's from Berbice, Skeldon, or was from Skeldon, and we were just talking about how Berbice is sort of it's contrary to like a buzzing city, and we're talking about why more professionals don't go there, yada yada. But so I imagine it being very quiet and very sort of just simple living there. No, not too complicated.
No, it is, and again, it just comes back to what I was saying earlier. I'm not from New York. I don't know anything about that lifestyle. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about how that would feel, and I don't really want to. It's just not for me. Yeah. I enjoy that pace of life. It's how I grew up, and so fitting in Berbice is really not that different. It is, and it like you said, it's a mindset as well, because it's easy to think that the grass is greener on the other side, but I deal with a lot of clients that have it all, so to speak, and they come from very wealthy backgrounds, and then when they go out there, they love it. They love having a break from all that stuff. And in fact, many of them give later in life, you'll see them in their retirement years, give up those things to go and live like that. So I'm just thankful that I appreciate living like that now. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago, that's very successful businessman, done very well for himself, is a titan of industry, a leader in his industry. And he was saying that, everybody wants to have the money and the success and all this, but you seldom really get to enjoy it. Yeah. You're so invested in whatever you're doing that you really miss the important things, So it's like, we could sit here and say, oh, I wish I was rich, or I wish I had all this money. I wish my business was successful, but what are you giving up, Yeah. And it's not, and no matter how much money you have, sometimes it's just hard to enjoy that success when the things that matter, your health, your family, your free time, like those things you don't have those anymore. So that's the compromise. And I mean, it's tough though. And I think, in Guyana, I've noticed that everybody wants to be rich. And I sometimes fall into that trap too, because you get, like you said, you get caught up in the rat race. Yeah. And it's like, I gotta get more. And then, but I really, like, especially last year, I was like, I'm objectively happy with my life. Like, I don't know what more I really need. Yeah. I mean, somebody gives me $1 billion tomorrow, I'm not gonna say no. But at the same time, like, I'm like very fortunate and like good. And I feel like I'm solid here. And I feel like you just gotta keep reminding yourself that, it's so important to keep going. But I mean, it's interesting where we're at in Guyana right now, because there is a lot more opportunity, as you can probably tell. I'm sure you've gotten busy since you started this venture. What year did you start?
So we were licensed in 2020.
Oh, no way.
Or 2021. 2021, yeah. 2021.
So you did volunteer work until 2021?
Pretty much until we became citizens. Okay. That was kind of it. Yeah.
You're naturalized?
We're naturalized citizens.
Oh, fantastic. Guyana. Congratulations.
So
my fellow Guyanese brother.
Yeah. So when people say, oh, he's a Guyanese, like, yeah.
Yes, a Guyanese. Can I ask you how that process was? Sorry to cut you.
Oh, my goodness.
Please, I'd love to hear about that.
I think you have to have me back for round 2.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, no, it was awful. And I've spoken about this before, and of course, I'm saying these things with respect to all of the officials and people who are involved.
Oh, absolutely. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, and I know that people are not all like this, but I will tell you, my experience was absolutely atrocious. Everyone who dealt with us, like, because there's a lot to do, it's not simple. You can't just walk in and be like, I want to be a citizen. It ain't that easy. You got to put your picture in like 2 different papers for 2 different weeks. I think it is on Sunday.
No way.
That's like $300 US dollars.
Your picture pop. In the newspapers
that you're requesting. What do they call it? Naturalization. Yeah. No so way. And it's my wife and I, right? So I mean, it's like, I think all together, that alone was $120,000 or more. I can't even remember.
Who said that? The Ministry of
I think it comes under the Ministry of Presidency or
whichever ministry deals with.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's a requirement. I mean, and it's fine. We're all about requirements. Whatever the requirement is, we're going to do it. You got to get complete medical checkup. They draw your blood. They scan your chest, everything. I'm a healthy guy all around, but they don't pull any punches.
We make sure we recruit the best.
Yeah. But here's where things got, because I will mention it because it was just a nightmare. Everything pretty much went good. The people who led us through the process, you could say, really helpful.
Yeah.
Until the day we got called to our interview. And I'll never forget it. Of course we're nervous. It was my wife and I, we go in together right there at the passport office. And this gal, she invites us in. In fact, she invited us in with a trainee. And I said, fine, no problem. Yeah, I had nothing to hide. I'm totally fine to sit down there and have a conversation. She starts pop quizzing us all of a sudden, just asking us all these questions about Guyana, and we got a lot of them right, but there was some we didn't. And
like what?
Well, I'll give you an example, like the national motto.
Okay.
Right? One people, one destiny.
One people, one nation.
One people. Yeah, thank you. I still don't know it. Thank you. Well, I didn't know. I was like, I'm sorry. The motto. I don't even really use that word motto very often, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Well, so, and I admitted, my wife and I, we looked at each other and we didn't know, and we just admitted, I'm sorry, I didn't know. And she's like, oh, she just starts flaring up like a marble to just, nah, I ain't gonna pass you. I ain't gonna deny you right now. Y'all didn't take this serious. Y'all don't even know about Guyana. And I said, hold on, time out, miss. Just pause. First of all, you gave me no preparation. Like you're just sitting across the desk making this up off the top of your head. Like this is not a standard test. And she's like, well, in America, don't y'all test for citizenship? I was like, yeah, but that's a standard test that we give you classes to
There's at least a manual.
Yeah, and we give interpreters if you need. And my wife is Mexican. She's actually so she's born American, but her family they immigrated to America. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But my point is, the fact that she was comparing the two, and I kind of called her out on it, she was not happy. Oh, no. And so sure enough, yeah, she I think she denied us because it took like 2 years.
She denied you?
Yeah, it was not good because I ended up having to make, like, a year went by and I ended up making some phone calls, and it finally got to Robeson Ben. Okay. And I was like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, well, just a second, let me look. I think his exact words were something to the effect of, I sign gobs of those every so often, so it's got to be here somewhere. And so he put his secretary to look, and sure enough, it was just like off in the thing. And
yeah,
but yeah, I don't know what actually transpired. But long story short, he picked it up and he's like, yeah, well, you're approved and it's gonna be fine, and come get sworn in, and there you go. But it was a nightmare, and in that process too, like traveling out of the country is not really possible. It kind of messes things up if you leave. And we didn't have a work visa anymore. We were doing we didn't do any what do I say? We didn't renew our stamp during that time because we were waiting on the citizenship. Yeah. So it wouldn't have made sense.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like undocumented in the country during that whole time. Yeah. It was really stressful.
Couldn't really work.
And we couldn't really officially work either.
Yeah.
So it was like just so we were doing like, just to get, just to scrape by, we were doing some online English teaching to Chinese kids.
Oh, no way. But that is the thing for a lot of people living, because I have a couple of friends who have been here, and while they're waiting on, same thing, going through the horrors of, they didn't even go for naturalization, but just to get work, to extend work permits. And it's just like a nightmare.
Yeah.
Which sucks because it's like, we're saying, we need more people coming in to offer services that maybe the locals aren't able to do yet. And, we're making it extremely hard for it to happen.
No, and that was, I think, the part that hurt so much was, for you to minimize my value, my worth, someone who's been here doing volunteer work, helping people, to just one question that I didn't know, that I'm totally capable of learning. You tell me anything, I'll learn it, right? It's not a big deal. But I was like, I'm still a good person. I'm not a criminal. I'm here to contribute to society.
That shouldn't be the deal breaker.
That's what I'm saying.
Granted, the motto is a big one.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
No.
I mean, look, I'm in agreement with you. Guyanese will jump on and say, well, you didn't know the motto. But it's like, you're right. It's like, the process to naturalization has to be, it can't be this random, okay, guess what I'm thinking, guess what number I'm thinking kind of test. So I totally get it. And, this is just unfortunately, this is like a problem with our systems. We kind of, and the people working in public service full time, I mean, I don't want to go into it, but it's just almost like a lack of training or just procedure or just basic people service, just communication skills. And that's what it comes down to. So, if there's any challenge to your sort of position of power, it's, oh, you think you can challenge me? Well, here's this, Yeah. So I'm sorry that happened to you, man. But here we are now. Yeah,
it worked out in the end. And like you said, my heart just goes out to anybody going through it. If they're having a hard time, I feel you.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for asking. That was it.
No, I'm glad. That's amazing you shared that. This is the kind of stuff we want to hear. So when you were naturalized, that was in year
2021. I think it was just 2020. 2021. Yeah, right. It was during COVID is when it was.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So then you just started right away.
Yeah, well, so I was trying everything, right? So we were doing things along the way because I was hoping everything would just fold into one. Mm-hmm. So I was working with GTA to get my licensing for all that. I was getting my captain license, my boat license. My main boat that you went on, my aluminum boat. In fact, I definitely would love if people could see a picture of it the day I got it.
I'll show it to them now.
Yeah, I'll find it. But it was a nightmare. It had trees growing out of it, and it was just, it was crazy. We got it cleaned up. We, welded back some patches that were damaged, and so everything was lining up perfectly. It was just, and maybe that was for the best. We didn't get our citizenship right away because it kind of all lined up anyway in the end. So we were moving in that direction to get Blackwater Adventures up. So basically, within maybe a few weeks or a month of becoming naturalized and getting our licenses from respective authorities, we were able to go ahead and move forward.
Why? I mean, I know you came from, living like an outdoor life, away from big cities and loving nature and stuff like that. But why decide to do tours? Like, what was like? You did a tour one time and like.
Yeah, that's funny. So, I never really thought about doing it for a living. It was never really a big thought in my mind, but it was kind of born out of necessity. So it was really sport fishing. Okay. In Berbice, no one was throwing a rod and a reel and fishing.
Really?
Not really. Yeah, and I mean even in Guyana as a whole, sport fishing. We're talking about not fishing, but sport fishing. It was kind of restrained, you could say, to foreigners coming to do your hardcore fishing expeditions for a number of years. But just guys like now we have loads of people who go out even right here around Georgetown and you got their rod and their reel and they fish for things. Anyway, at the time I was doing it and people were like, at first, you can't catch fish with that kind of thing here. It's not going to work. That's for somewhere else, blah, blah.
This was using like a reel?
Yeah. Rod and reel and
lure.
Yeah, and lure and definitely trick bait as we call it. And people were they were shocked. So I started catching. I think my very first fish I caught was a cuffum, a tarpon.
Tarpon.
And they were shocked. They were like, "Oh man, we were down there right in Kanji Creek, right by the bridge." And they were just like, "Oh man, then everyone's hooked because they see it." And in the fishing community, we say the tug is the drug. So you feel, and I was excited because that was my first tarpon in my life. I'd never even seen one, and I didn't even know. Yeah, I caught it just blindly. I had no idea. Anyway, coming back to the point, people started asking me. They're like, "Hey, my cousin's coming in from Canada. Can you take him out fishing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we can go fishing." And I wasn't even charging. It was just for fun. People that knew me and stuff, and it kind of just became more. And initially, Blackwater Adventures was actually going to be kayaking trips. And
on the Kanji.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we did it. In fact, if you look back at our old social media stuff, you can even see, maybe I could probably even pull up a picture of that. My wife and I doing like live stream kayaking stuff from Kanji Creek. And because I thought it was something that would really help people connect to nature, and it was also great apparatus for fishing. kayaks are great for fishing. They're stealth mode, and you're right there at the water level. So I thought it was going to be the best thing, but just multiple things led me to think kayaking on the river, the creek, is just not for everybody. It's a little bit limited if you're going to try to involve others. Of course, you can do it, but I wanted to be able to have something that's very accessible. So that led me to using a boat with an engine.
Yeah. Well, also, I think the people who are, and I guess the financial, the margins also for using the boat is that, people are more into glamping for the most part, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it also feels like, they're taken care of, because anything, oh, Dillon, can you help me with my reel, or just, people like who are like kind of noobs, I guess, have that security of having you right there, as opposed to if they're in a kayak by themselves and they're like, oh.
Yeah. Everything you're saying, that is exact. I mean,
yeah.
I remember there was a guy, he was about 70 at the time, Tony, great guy. I took him on a trip kayaking from Blackbush Polder down the canal all the way to Kanji Creek, which is like 8 miles, 10 miles or something like that.
8 miles in a kayak.
And we camped out and we slept there at Blackbush Pump underneath a nice big kamaka tree, and it was great. But he was like, I ain't going to be able to do this tomorrow. And so sure enough, it ended with me towing him the whole way out. Way. Yeah, all the way down to New Forest.
Oh, wow.
So like I said, there's things like...
Should have seen that coming.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it can go bad fast. There's a safety aspect too, because boaters in most parts of, especially Berbice, they just don't have an awareness about that kind of activity. So there was kind of a safety aspect too. Whereas when you're on a boat, you can maneuver with them, right?
Yeah.
So just
as in they just like power past and the wake catches you.
Yeah, exactly that, and just even seeing you, right? Because sometimes they'll be loaded down. For example, like one guy will be running a boat full of wood. His bow will be so high up, he's not even seeing over the front because he's not even thinking about anybody out there. But he'll just plow through.
That makes me think about those viral YouTube videos of like the big ship coming and these guys are like, stop. And then the ship mows through. Oh my God. Yeah. That's kind of the vibes I'm getting there.
It's an all too real possibility. So you got to be on your toes. And there's also a lot of people that know this, but to actually kayak in that level of kayak, you use muscles that you don't use for very many other activities. And so even if you're a fit person, you will likely be sore after kayaking a distance. So it's just, all of it added up.
Gotcha. Well, I hope he tipped you well for towing him back.
Yeah.
So basically, you kind of started that you did it like as a favor to someone, taking them out, and that it built, and then you decided to get on the GTA, and I'm sure they've been very helpful. They're obviously amazing with the stuff they're doing, and built it to what it is today. So how would you say, like, you got the word out for your business, for the stuff you like? Did you do marketing, or was it more word of mouth? How did you sort of get your name out there?
I kind of have a rule, actually. I don't pay for advertising. Yeah, it's kind of a rule. And I mean, every so often I might sponsor an ad on social media, very rarely. Like I just did one the other day for we have a new sunset cruise here on the Demerara River, right in Georgetown. Okay. Maybe I'll talk more about that later, but just to like real quick, like let people know, boom, I might do a $15 sponsor. But yeah, as far as any big marketing, no, I haven't. And I really believe in you have to build your community, and business is not about making money. If you think that, it doesn't matter really what business you're in, it's not going to work. Business is about making connections, networking, and making customers.
Money will come.
Yeah, exactly. So long story short, I think the best thing we did, if I was just going to put a label on it, would be definitely getting with GTA. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really can't say enough good things about Guyana Tourism Authority. They're a big organization, so they got a lot of moving parts. but they really work hard to promote tourism, and they did for me in a big way. I mean, I'm eternally grateful. When we were very first getting going, by doing like fam trips, as they call them, getting a little exposure through them, it was just great, and it just slowly built from there. And now we do have a website, which is actually a requirement. So unless you in Guyana, if you are a licensed tour operator, you either have to have an office, like a building, or you have to have a website, one of the two.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think that requirement is perfectly
it's a solid
reasonable.
requirement. Yeah, for sure.
So we got that going, and then of course, Google loves you after everybody else does anyway.
Yeah.
So if you want to spend thousands on Google to force it to like you, you can do that. But other ideas are just do good.
Yeah. Get it on the ground floor. Come up with a good solid niche. Yeah.
And get, like TripAdvisor, that's a free platform. You know, you get good reviews, which we're really, really proud. We won the TripAdvisor 2023 Traveler's Choice Award.
No way.
Which I'm just ecstatic
Congratulations.
about. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really happy about it. So it's all, I mean, I'm not a computer guy, but I'm sure it's all interconnected. So if they like you on this platform, they're going to
algorithm maybe just picks it up across platforms.
Yeah.
Just to quickly divert here, do you think, like, for the most part, you must have a sense, I'm not saying you're focused on what other people are doing, but do you think that people in general, and whether it's in your industry or other aspects of tourism, do you think people in Guyana underutilize the online resources and channels that they can spread their business?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And not just even with the marketing aspect, but even just a safety aspect. I'll give you an example. We're cashless. Blackwater Adventures
That's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah, we're a cashless. Like, we get, every so often somebody will basically force us to take a cash payment. And we're reasonable, so we will, but we're cashless. We cashless. We use a system called Tab. Pandama Wineries is also they use that, and I think a few other organizations. But the point I'm getting at is safety. We don't have to deal with money. We don't. All of our booking system is tied in with our record keeping system, our accounting. It's all
streamlined everything.
Yeah. So it just, as far as function, it being online on the computer, it just helps your business grow and be successful so much quicker. And then, like little things, like you were talking about advertising. If I want to put a picture up on my website, it's there. I can send people to, hey, look at my website. And when they go there, they're going to see these pictures, and they're going to see client reviews and things like that. And it just separates you from just some guy who's doing something fly by night, so to speak, you know? So definitely get on the computer, get using electronic payment methods, especially. I think that's the best thing you can do.
It's crazy because those things just make it so much, even me, who's a Guyanese, like, my first instinct is, I'm not sure where this place is. Let me Google Maps it. And then there's so many places that aren't registered. But why would you make me, like, waste half an hour driving around trying to figure out what your lot number is?
Yeah.
Whereas I could plug it in Google, boom, takes me directly to your door.
Yeah.
And we don't really utilize those resources because they just make commerce so much easier. Like, it's like you're sort of crippling yourself by not doing this. So it's important.
And just to add to what you said, you got to remember your clientele. With tourism, you're not dealing, I mean, you can be, there's definitely tour companies that cater almost exclusively for fellow Guyanese, which is fine. Mm-hmm. I'm all about locals getting to see their own beautiful country. That is wonderful. But tourism, in of its own self, the name alone means that you are a tourist. So we're catering to people who aren't from here, which means you have to try to meet them at something that they're accustomed to. And nowadays, it's 2024. Everything's online, and not even online. It's on your phone. Yeah. So your website needs to be mobile, and it's not that hard. It's so easy. And it's not that expensive either. I do all my own. I am not a computer guy, and I do all my own web design. So that should tell you something. Yeah,
no, 100%. And a lot of, like, people will, like, look at a clip of this and be like, oh, well, why are you not offering cash? Because you don't care about the Guyanese, the locals. But I'm like, the locals should be meeting you halfway. Like, we need to get out of this cash economy. You know, like we really need to. And look, there's a lot of, arguments for and against, but there's way more reasons for. And, like, it's just, this is where the world is moving. And we can't be a developed country if we don't get out of like a cash society. Yeah. So it's crazy. It's so annoying to carry around cash. I hate it.
And I cannot stress this enough. If you, I'm sure you watch the news, you see all the robberies. I mean, how many times have you seen this person walking with $7 million? Who does?
Yeah.
If I can't even imagine like what I would
I don't
be
even
doing
know what
with that.
7 million looks like.
Yeah, but why would you have that in cash? Like you're asking to get targeted.
No,
Like that's a nightmare.
For sure.
So anyway, yeah, for me, it's a huge safety aspect too. I don't want, especially like at my landing, for example, I would never accept payment at my landing. It's just not going to happen.
Is there crime in Berbice like a lot? Or?
Not in any significant. I really feel safe there. I've got no issues, but and especially not like where we do our trips. I mean, that's the.
We never want to tempt fate anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just good practice. That's my point, I think. And hey, look at that. I'm in Berbice. I'm in a safe area. But think about these operators. Most of them are in Georgetown, Georgetown has a crime. There's an element of crime here. It's not the most criminal place on the planet, but it definitely has crime.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think even more so for them, this would be a good point. And I've spoken about this to loads, and I've lent a hand. Like I know Wanderlust, Rosalind, she's an amazing tour operator. Yeah, just a great person, and she's cutting edge. She's doing a lot of these things that we're talking about too, and she's right here in Georgetown, and she has a store as well. So a nice store. I mean, an office. So
yeah. So fantastic. Well, it's okay. So you're telling me you don't pay for marketing. Basically word of mouth, you've created the sort of this reputation, which in my opinion is still the best way, even in the age of digital marketing. Nothing like word of mouth, like your testimony for a service I want to get, it means way more to me than a 5-star from someone online. So from 2021 to now, I'm assuming things just sort of took off because you're like always busy.
Yeah. It's kind of about just trying, you just keep moving forward. That's how it, with small business, you just keep moving forward. I mean, I can remember my very first like real trip out, and compare that to now where we're running, between 4 and 5 trips minimum a week, not including the Demerara trips, which is now that's going to make it even more. But you just keep trying and you just keep seeing what's working, what's not working. You pivot. I'll give you an example of that. Like when I first started, and I know I'm going to pronounce this word wrong. The charcuterie boards? Mm-hmm. Did I say it right?
Yeah, I think so. That's how you say it, right?
Yeah? Okay, wow. Well,
I say charcuterie sometimes. I think it's charcuterie. Yeah.
Well, Stephanie's going to be very proud of me. Well, that was my brilliant idea. I thought we were going to have those on the trips, like especially for the Sunset Cruise, right? Because I thought they were classy, a bottle of wine. It was very classy. It was super classy, right? And that was a huge flop.
Yeah.
Huge flop.
Come Guyana to eat charcuterie.
Right, yeah. But I just was like, and then I kind of found my niche. It's not me either. Like it was weird as I did it I think I only did it 2 times. It felt odd. So now we've locked in like pine tarts are a perfect snack, nice. And now we have an amazing caterer. Her name's Stephanie Pereira. I'll even share her contact number because she's just awesome. And she caters for our trips and people are always raving about them. In fact, today coming up to Berbice, a client of mine who lives up here put an order in and I brought it up with me just because of how good they are. Yeah, she's just phenomenal.
I love that. I love the local like connection and that supply. You have your own niche supplier.
Yeah. And so things like that, just those pivots and again, in time you build a community and things happened like there was a company called Oldendorf. A lot of people know me in Berbice because I have the old Oldendorf boat. And I just threw a captain on the water top, found out that they were liquidating. They were leaving the country. They were shutting down their operation, which they've done. Anyway, I was able to get an amazing deal on the boats, on their big speedboats. And it was just in fact, I even had the money. I had to borrow the money to get it to get it done. But it was just one of those things where it was too good to pass up. And that further propelled things because now we have 2 vessels. So we have the small one, which is licensed for 10, and we have the big one, which is licensed for 19 and 2 crew. And so
19.
so we can cater for, and I'm about ready to be doing pretty major renovations on the big boat. We're going to do a wraparound bench seat instead of the like row passenger style.
Yeah.
So and it'll have a flat floor. So you can have like a conversation with people around you. You can walk up and down the boat.
Yeah. You do most of these renovations yourself, right?
I always
see you doing engineering and you're amazing actually. I look at you and I get anxiety. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't take apart something in so many pieces and have the confidence to put that back together.
Well, I'll tell you why I do it. And I've said this saying, it's not mine. I think it might be Abraham Lincoln, but I could be wrong. Anyway, the quote goes like this: chop your own firewood because it will warm you twice.
Nice.
So the meaning, right, is clear. If you do something yourself, it benefits you immediately and later.
Yeah.
And so that's why I am never, and then when I was in emergency medical services, rescue, we also had another saying, which is pack your own parachute. And it means whatever you come into a situation with is what you're going to do. It's been said that in the heat of battle, a soldier doesn't rise to the occasion. He shrinks to the level of his training. And so I want my knowledge base to be with me at the highest level it can. So I've even paid guys, for example, I'm about ready to pay a guy. He's a very skilled boat builder from the Pomeroon. He's going to come out and work along with me. Well, let me completely put that in the right way. I'm going to work along with him and I'm going to try to learn. But I'm paying him to do the work.
Yeah.
Like I'm just there, but I want to learn everything that I can.
It's going to be
him.
A sponge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, somebody else might just say, well, I'm delegating that, right? Because that's a businessman's term, right? I'm delegating it. And I could easily do that, but I need that information because what's going to happen if I rest on a pile or jam a tacuba, hit a floating wood? I need to know, hey, can I deal with this out there? And so that's the reason for it.
I love that.
And you know that, right? Because you've been all over the bush too.
Yeah.
How many times have you been in a Hilux or a cruiser or a boat and the captain or the driver just gets out and he just does something?
Yeah.
Well, he didn't just figure that out then. He brought that with him.
Thank you for saying that because it would have never been me. In this scenario, I'd never chop firewood. But yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like, I love that attitude, because like usually how it goes here is you open a business and then it's just, okay, I just got to get a good contract and sit back and kick up my feet. And for the rest of my life, I can live this life. And this is the faulty assumption. But life never works that way, even for the people at the highest level. And they'll get exposed at some point. We'll all get exposed if we take on that mentality.
Yeah.
So I love that. I mean, like, and that's a lot of discipline too, man. Like, you really got to be hungry for like your craft and to get to that next level. I feel that. I mean, like, I respect that.
Yeah.
So basically your tours now, are you mostly, I know you have the Demerara tour, which we'll talk about in a sec, but is it mostly like river tours, like fishing and stuff? I see you do a lot of like family trips.
Yeah, we do. So my goal is just to be accessible. So what I mean by that, and I'm not trying to put anybody down, but this is very widespread, especially in Guyana. There's a tourism mentality that you have to have like a minimum group of 12, 15 people, even to go to Kaieteur. The amount of complaints I've heard from people, they've booked trips, they're ready to go to Kaieteur, and then canceled. And it is just heartbreaking, right? Yeah. For people visiting the country to see like the gem, right, K Falls, and then to be canceled last minute, it's just sad. So my point is, I try to be available, accessible, easy, just simple. So for example, in Berbice, well, and wherever we go, Quarantine River, Berbice, Essequibo, pretty much my minimum price is always equal to 4 people. Yeah. Which is a family. I mean, that's or a group of guys, or gals or whatever. But with that being said, I've even taken it a step further. On the Demerara, we have no minimum. Okay. At all. So If you call and you want to go and it's just you, you're going. The price is the same. Does that mean I take a loss? Yeah, it does. But we're balancing because we're doing this long term. This isn't a one-time thing. We're doing it 7 days a week. Weather pending. If it's torrential downpour, we might have to cancel for that. But 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and we want people to be able to just do it simply. And we will never cancel on you. I've never canceled a trip. Even the other day, I cut this finger. You can see it. I cut it down to the. Wow. Yeah, and I can't feel this finger anymore. I'm pretty sure the bone is fractured in there too. Did that about 2 hours before the trip. I was this close to going in and getting stitches and everything, but I just wrapped it with some cloth and did the trip. Maybe that's not a good example, but I mean, we just don't want to cancel on people. We want it to be easy. Tourism should be, and you have to be reliable. These are just things that I try to do. So long story short, we can take any size group pretty much up to the big boat maximum, and it's available whenever, as long as we don't have a booking. That's the whole thing.
What do you think people enjoy the most? What do you see? What's the most successful product? I know you do fishing. There's the caiman capture experience, which is quite lovely. The sunset. Yeah,
I think that's a tough one. I think one thing always comes out and surprises me: the stars.
Yes,
it's so
no light pollution there.
Yeah. It's really sad to hear, because again, I grew up in a very, very starry place. I mean, the Rocky Mountains, because we're high, right? We got elevation in our favor. So you're getting up there in the atmosphere and you get to see the stars. It's just amazing. But here out in the countryside, you do as well. And when people come from big cities, from different places in the world, they'll tell me I've never seen so many stars. I've had numerous times, even up to last night, we have a caiman in my arms, or their arms, it depends on who's holding it. We're interacting with the caiman and everyone's just looking up. And so we end up just sitting there cuddling with this caiman, looking at the stars. And it's so nice. And then everyone turns off their lights and we just float there on the river. And I think that, if I had to pick one thing, it might surprise you, but that's almost always the highlight of the trip.
Yeah.
On those trips.
No, for sure. Because every time I look up to the stars, I just you really think about where we are floating in space and how insignificant we are in the grandest scheme of things. Every time I get into that headspace, I always have a crisis. I always think to myself, who are we? What are we here for? What is life? It's crazy. I love watching the stars. I love taking pics, night photography as well. It's such a cool hobby to do. So much you can do with it. That
what you just were talking about, there's a saying I heard, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but something to the effect of, the further you go, the more you feel.
Yeah.
And it's so true, right? Because the more remote places you get out and see, the more you spend time in your own thoughts thinking about that. And people need that. Yeah. Some people can't handle it.
No. I'm so happy you said that, because sometimes I'm just the thought of being in space and this is just thinking, right? I'm in space, I'm looking at Earth and I'm drifting away. The thought of that is where am I going? Everything I know is here, and I don't even know all of that. Yeah. And it's the whole idea of vastness and the incomprehensible is a lot, especially in this day and age where we're so focused on BS things, that have nothing to do with us, that are so meaningless. So to really think about existence and being and it's just crazy. I love it though. I just love it.
And it's good for people. It's so, like you said, looking up at the stars. I'll give you another one, campfires.
Yeah.
If you put on a TV and you lit a campfire, I guarantee you the vast majority of people are going to spend their time looking at that campfire. Because it's just mesmerizing. It's so nice to look at, just calming. It's
not to mention the cracking, the crackling, and the acoustics of it. It's fantastic.
And if you do that enough, it helps you. I have people, they come out and they're like, "Oh man, it's so nice to disconnect from everything." It's no. You're not disconnecting. You're reconnecting. This is the real life. Yeah. You live in a distraction. Most of the things you think matter is just because you're caught up in it. But when you get out and you take a break, you get to take a step back and look and see things from a different perspective. And it's really important. People need that.
It's you, totally. And every time, unfortunately, I haven't been able to, like, a lot of my work hasn't taken me into the interior like it used to this last year. But I just remember, man, like every time I'm out there, I'm just like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what we live for. Not this other stuff like that we think we live for. This is it. Like, this is like, should everything go to crap tomorrow, this is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, like I think about like, you know, how if you really to like think about how animals just survive on primal instinct, it's like they're just focused on survival, like the immediate things around them. You know, like, I don't know if you follow this page, Nature is Metal on Instagram. It just like basically shows like animals like going through like the most brutal and just finding a way to survive, you know, and how like just how detached it is. They're just doing it because that's instinctually what they have to do. And humans aren't really, we're not really put in that position a lot. And it's unfortunate, like, you know, like, because you kind of lose sight of what's important.
Yeah.
Like what's really important, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then we need, I mean, I don't want to talk about this, but I spend a lot of time thinking about this because I see, especially young kids coming up, and it's just surprising, you know, like these, especially young men, the qualities, the things that they need to have, they're lacking. Yeah. And this is the stuff we're talking about, you know, it's getting worse. And so, yeah, it's just weird. You see, for example, right, in tribal communities around the world, oftentimes you'll see them, they have like a coming of man ceremony. There's something they do, and it helps symbolize that they've now become a man. People in developed countries don't have it. And then these boys are left to their own devices, and they make these stupid things. They do these sometimes even horrible things that they end up getting involved in because they're trying to become a man, so to speak. They're trying to make their own adventures. Whereas nature provides all of that. It gives you everything you need, and it teaches you a lesson along with it, and it helps you grow. Video games don't do that. I'm not afraid to say it. They don't. They take away from it. They detach you from reality, and it gets pretty bad fast. And then it's gotten to the point now where folks have to enjoy nature with like a bubble around them. And that's limiting them. So it's kind of, I don't know. I spend time thinking about this a lot. Just what will it be like in the future?
We're a different generation. Like we're different. Just sort of where we're at. Like I feel like it's changed. It's hard to, you know, unless you really go, unless you're like, for example, in your field where you're always surrounded by it and actively, you know, you gotta, if you're like a city person, you gotta really put yourself out there, and that's hard. That's hard for these people to do. But even me, like sometimes it's hard to just drop it and just say, "Hey, I need this," but it's worth it.
And even in cities, I'll just add like what you said, and this is great because this doesn't even cost you anything. Just even sitting out on the grass. You know, in Guyana we get the botanical gardens, we get the national park. You know, go see the manatees. If you've never done it, you know, little things like that. Go to the seawall. We have, even right in Georgetown, ways that, as I mentioned, you can reconnect. You don't have to spend money and go with a tour operator and go here and there and drive and do some mountain safari. No, just spend time enjoying nature quietly.
Being present.
Yeah. Turn off your phone try. It might be hard. I've seen people. I saw one kid one time, I'll never forget. We were way off the grid, no signal whatsoever. And it had to be every 3 minutes, he'd open his little device, whatever it was, and click on the YouTube icon, knowing full well we didn't have signal. But it was like an addiction. Yeah. And I just watched him on the boat, and I was like, this is just, you know, my heart went out to him because he's clearly missing out on what's all happening around him. But he was having withdrawal syndrome.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's too real. And I get it. Sometimes my phone makes me sick. I can't tell you. Like, I just want to chuck it as far as I can. It's tough. You know, I hope we find we find back that love for what's like real, you know? Yeah. And I think, like, I don't know how old you are, but I'm like 31 now. My generation was I think one of the last ones to get out or to have that childhood experience of, like, you know, skin your knees falling off your bike, running around the neighborhood, getting chased by dogs, just really like digital less awkward friendship situations, like really have to like, you're really out there alone and you got to figure that out,
Yeah. Yeah.
We just don't have to, let me just shut down here in this screen kind of thing,
Yeah.
It's a lost experience, I think, but I'm hopeful we sort of find it back. We need it.
Yeah. And trying things like what we were talking about earlier, in my own experience, just, doing what I do, trying it. I didn't have an algorithm for it, and that's okay. I kind of had an idea, a vision. I didn't know where it was going to go. But nowadays we're so set on, what does Google tell me to do? What have other people done? Try something yourself. Take a leap. Just try it. And
why do you think there's that fear though? Because there is that fear. But why do you think like it's sort of like this hesitation to fail? Where do you think that comes from?
I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier, just a self-reliance. You have to, kids have to know, and adults too, but it starts when you're small. You have to know that it's okay to try something, and it may work out, it might not, and that's okay. You learn from it. I think there's a saying, when perfection is required, failure is assured.
Yes.
And I think that's where the fear comes from. And fear is a really dangerous thing too, because under no circumstances can a human or animal, for that matter, learn in a state of fear. You can't. So if you're afraid, all learning stops and there's no growth there. So it just comes back to the first thing I mentioned. I think it's just an idea. If you have one, try it. Just try and see how it works out. Look at you guys with Real Guyana. This didn't happen overnight. You've grown into what you are now, and that's amazing.
Still feel fear. I mean, like it never stops. I think that's important for people to know as well. It's like
true,
and you can
Absolutely.
attest to that. And I guess what helps is the bravery to, I want more knowledge. I'm hungry.
Yeah, absolutely.
I ask these questions because I experience it. We have this false perception that like the uncertainty stops. It doesn't. It just changes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like it's constantly training the muscle to deal with it, the fear response.
And you have to love it.
Yeah.
You have to love it just a little bit. You're not, the feeling in your gut, you're not gonna like it, but you have to move through it, because on the other side, when you've done it, that's when you feel good.
I look at that like a sports analogy, because I play sports and I compete for Guyana, like squash. I play squash. But when I'm playing, like I'm always fearful of, how bad is this going to hurt me? Like, because physically you don't want to be the guy doing all the running or the guy, exhausted. But if you can overcome that mental obstacle, you just find yourself like, yeah, you're hurting, but he's hurting too. Yeah. And then it's just like when you're done, it's like, yes, like I'm just, it gives you like this feeling of just like, oh, I'm like, I've done it, I've just killed this. I'm the man. Like, it's really like just finding those like mental tricks to get over this pain, and building up that pain tolerance.
Yeah.
And it's like also like, that's at least how most men approach it. I'm sure women have a different way. They probably have, half the insecurities we have. Men are so terrible at like dealing with this stuff. Yeah. But yeah.
My wife is my anchor.
Yeah, same.
Honestly. Yeah. I agree with you. There's moments where I've been full on freak out mode, just panic. And she's like, it's gonna be all right. Like and then I appreciate, because she's like, you're gonna fix it, or whatever. I know you're gonna figure a way. But in the moment, I'm like, this is a big deal. I don't know what's gonna happen. But
yeah, when the world finds out how much better like women are than men, we're screwed. We're in problems. But so back to the touring. So you've basically been growing since 2021. Fantastic job. I mean, like I hear so much people talk about it. It's like, it's crazy to see like the trajectory of your growth. And you're now doing Demerara tours. So I guess you have a boat in town as well.
Yeah, it's a joint venture between Blackwater Adventures and Westside Marine.
Okay.
And so that's how we're doing it. And it is awesome. So they are, they're a high level. I mean, the West Side Marine, I don't want to say this exactly. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're in a group of companies with like Genequip, Farm Supply, and they're all connected, but they are an international standard, which is kind of where I strive to be. I try my best. And so being able to partner with them is just amazing. So they have a marina right there in Lagrange. And on that note, I'll share something. We actually were the first company in Guyana to earn the HSSE, which is Health, Safety, Security, and Environment certification.
Oh, no
certification. Yeah. Which is like it's like more of an oil and gas thing, but they've shifted it to tourism. And there's a few other tourism companies who have come now on board as well, and more to come.
So your tourism approved for the oil and gas sectors, essentially.
Is essentially, but it's also an international standard. And so the reason I mention that is so is Genequip. So is all those, big guys. And so it works really nicely. So I don't have to worry, because bottom line is I would never work with someone who doesn't have their captain's license. I wouldn't work with someone who doesn't have their tourism license. And I've had that discussion with people. They know that. Because there's guys out there, they're fly-by-nighters, and they want to fly under the radar, and they don't want to, make this their full-time gig. They just want to do it on the side.
Cut corners.
Right. And those are the guys that are a liability. So I will never work with them. Being privileged to work alongside West Side Marine is just amazing. And so West Side Marine is also the Guyana Defense Force Coast Guard Maintenance Center. They do all the work for them. So it's also led me. So my guides are... So I have Omari Joseph. I think you know him. Yeah. So he's a licensed captain. So he's running the boat and guiding trips. He's the lead guide on the Demerara trip, and he's amazing. I just admire him so much. Such a cool guy. But I also have like leader rating Gavaya. So he's a officer in the Coast Guard full time, and he works with me as well. So as far as like safety and running the vessel, I have no concern.
Yeah.
And he's coming up very nicely as a guide. He's doing fantastic. He's a very personable guy. So long story short, yes. So we have the boat there.
What kind of boat is it?
We'll show some pictures for sure. So it's licensed for 8 passengers. It's a rib boat. So it has like an aluminum hull with an inflatable ring around it.
Yes.
So it's very stable, very comfortable. It's got 4 saddle seats at the front and a nice big comfortable bench seat at the back. And that's it. Yeah. So we can do trips any day of the week. Start time, we shifted. We were 3:30 to 5:30, but we noticed it was just too early for the sunset. So we went to 4:30 to 6. And that move has been awesome. So we've had good success with that, and then you're not like scorching out there, catching a sunburn.
Cool afternoon. You get the sun as it going down.
Exactly, and then all that's customizable, just like all my other stuff.
How far are you going, Lagrange to the mouth?
Yeah, we go in the ocean. Yeah, we go out. Yeah, not far, but you know, right out there to the Atlantic, past Marriott, and then we come back, and we're stopping on all the sites. You know, you get to see the lighthouse, you get to see the bridge. All the old wharfs and things that are there, things I didn't even know. There's some abandoned, pretty old structures there, which are neat. And then, of course, as the sun's setting, you get the wildlife to come in, which is not as much as like we see in Kanji Creek. You know, the odds of seeing a sloth out there or an anteater is pretty slim.
Yeah.
But you get to see a lot of beautiful birds. The ibis are there, the egrets are there, and it's nice. And then we return you back and you get to come out. But the landing, the marina is A1. It's super safe.
I've been. It's
nice.
Very nice. Yeah. It's world class.
It really is. Yeah. And so Omari's working on right now. We're actually having as the guests arrive, they're going to have a waiting area where we have a safety briefing video playing. So they get to be, shown the video, watched it, and then escorted down to the boat. So we're trying really hard to make that something that's just accessible. I come back to that word, simple. Imagine you fly in. You're here for work, which is a lot of what's bringing people here. You know, they're here for oil and gas, and they might be here just for a few days, and they just want something they can do within this area. They don't have time to go clear in the Rupununi and see all the beauty that is there. They just don't have time for it. So this is kind of for them. This is a nice chance just to have a break, or maybe they're here long term for business or whatever. They have a break. They just get to go out there and experience a little break from it all, and get to see the beauty that's right here in Georgetown.
Yeah, and definitely like a good starter for like foreigners who do want to maybe eventually do longer adventures, but
Absolutely. Yeah.
and who better to start with,
And no, you're exactly right, because that could totally be what happens. It may introduce them to other opportunities to see Guyana, because
So you catch the bug. Yeah, catch the bug. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're connected. We're working this package with other operators, I should say, like as well. So if, for example, maybe another company might have one person, and they'll say, "Hey, we got one guest. We're giving 20% commission to other tour operators as well." So it's a as I mentioned, it's a big community. We're trying all to make this possible.
Have you found that pretty easy working with like collaborating with industry players?
That's an interesting question.
I talk about that a lot, and people mention that a lot because everybody's like, "There's no way the country can move forward just like as every man being an island.
Yeah.
Without the collaboration, it's almost impossible because you need that increasing capacity. If you're not collaborating with foreign investment, you got to do it in house."
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And then if you do, like, I know you've been down in the Rupununi, for example. I've spoken to quite a few of the people who run the lodges there and stuff, and they'll all tell you that their strength is each other. They have an amazing little tourism circuit, and the guests might go from this one to that one, and they all get to see the beauty that each place has. Very rarely does someone just go to the Cayman House or just go to Karnambu, for example.
Yeah.
They kind of move around. And I think that's kind of something that's new to me. So I wouldn't really even probably feel safe to say how I feel or whatever about it. Because because I'm in Berbice. So I didn't mention this earlier, but I was the first licensed tour operator in Region 6. But I mean, and I'm the only up to now as well. There's no other licensed tour operator there. So I'm kind of, not because I want to be, but I am an island. So I'm out of the tourism circuit. I've never, I've done trips with other operators before, but not near as many as I would like to. So this is an opportunity for me also to be connected to some of them. So I'm learning. But like me and Wanderlust, for example, me and Rosalind, we kind of started together.
Yeah.
Like we came up at the same time, and it was neat. Like I remember we used to go to Taco Loco and just talk about ideas for tourism, and it was so fun.
Rose is just a beast in the industry. Like she's a plethora of ideas, and she's like human innovation, in this industry. Like and exactly like you, and just hungry to push the envelope. And Vicky and I recently did a project with her, where we were like just covering her for this thing, and it was inspiring to see it. And that's the kind of, what we need from more Guyanese as well, like to just, you don't have to be in my industry, but like, if I can just learn and be inspired by you and know that like, we're both on this similar trajectory, that's what's going to push us forward, I find a lot of times many people are sort of closed off and very cards close to the chest kind of thing. And that's been our culture here. They call it like, crabs in a barrel kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. I think it's changing. I think like more people are like open. I mean, even something like the podcast, this is kind of why I did this, like, so we can come and talk about this and share ideas. And for some reason, like, I don't know, maybe like the market has always been limited, or we sort of have this, you kind of have to wait your turn for this handout kind of culture where everybody's very, it's traditionally been defensive. But I really have faith that the new generation is going to change that. Like, I think people are more like understanding of like, this isn't going to happen anymore. Like, it's a free market now.
I agree with you 100%. I'm seeing it there. And the level of creativity is just through the roof right now. I think COVID was actually a great catalyst for that.
Yeah.
People had to become more innovative. And I'm not just talking about Guyana, I'm talking about worldwide, but I definitely I'll give you one example. I saw a lady who, she was really inspirational to me. Like mango sour, you
Mango sour,
put it on different things, right? Mm-hmm. Well, she went all out. She started making it with like cucumbers and like passion fruit and just she just turned this whole paradigm shift over about, this very common, what do they call it? Condiments, right?
Yeah.
But it was a huge success and it was cool. But like you said, if she would have probably done that maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it might not have worked. But now it's the right time. So if anybody's, like you said, hungry, willing to try things, now is the time. You pretty much could, especially in Guyana, you could throw a dart at any industry. And as long as you're,
stick.
yeah, pretty
Dude,
much.
there's no way. I don't think we could have done this. Like, I think we hit our thing as well at the right time. There's always been people in the I don't know what you want to call it, production industry.
Yeah.
But I don't think the industry is so multifaceted that there's so many different avenues you could go on. There's enough to go wrong for everyone. If you granted, if you do your work properly, you sell yourself properly, and you're reputable, which is always important across the board. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting, and I think more people have to like really get that sort of wave of optimism, because there's a lot of things wrong with Guyana, but you can do stuff and do well if you really give it 100%.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but that I want to talk quickly about Berbice, because I'm like fascinated about, like, just because you're a guy that has experience in obviously like the developed world, and you kind of know what's going on. And Berbice, I kind of look at it as like an area, and I am relatively ignorant because I haven't spent that much time there. But like, what do you see? You said, like, for example, you're the only registered operator in Berbice, which is a good and a bad thing, you know. What kind of things does a place like Berbice need to just sort of, it doesn't have to turn into Georgetown by any means, but to move it forward, or to get more like boost the economy, give more opportunity to people? I'm assuming there are a lot of people that aren't doing much, even though there are people in like rice and sugar.
Yeah. You do have some. I mean, there's definitely Berbicians who have done a lot.
Yeah.
And there's people who are doing stuff in Georgetown that might surprise you. They're from Berbice.
Okay.
As you mentioned, it's like titans of industry. I've gotten to meet some of them. They're like, I actually grew up in Berbice. It's like, wow, really? That's awesome. But what do they need? One of the things I talk about quite a bit, and I get asked this question all the time, is people will come up to me, just random people, like Blackwater Adventures. I'm like, hey man, how you doing? Nice to meet you. My name's Dillon, and we talk. Hey, I was wondering, what's the government doing to help you with your tourism business? They should be doing this and that and the other. And it's like, the government is there to provide fire service, police, roads. My business is my business, right? Like, I have to make it work. They can't make my business run. What GTA has done for me is above and beyond any wild imagination. But at the end of the day, if they hadn't done it, I was still going to do my thing.
Yeah.
And that mentality, I hear it a lot.
Yeah.
And it's crippling.
I'm glad you said it. It's true.
If you wait on anyone as an entrepreneur in any industry, if you wait on the bank, if you wait on your partner, if you wait on the government, you are going to be waiting a long time. And the problem is, you're not taking control over your product, your service, your idea. You have to make it happen. And I think in general, Berbice is, I don't know the right word for it, but I think it's kind of been conditioned as a whole. I think the whole area is just kind of locked in that state of mind.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad, Even I'll give you another example. Berbicians just in general, it seems like have a little bit of a fear, as you mentioned, of like money, even, like advertising prices for services. And that's not good, because that makes that breeds like distrust, right? If you go in a place and you're like, hey, how's this selling? Oh, this 500. And then you ask someone, how's this selling? Oh, it's 1,000. It's like, well, how do I know who to, anyway. So like, yeah, just being a little more open, I think is also something that needs to happen in Berbice. Just anybody, even for what they're already doing, would be really good, just to advertise prices and be, don't be afraid to just try it. Keep moving forward with your own idea. Don't wait on anybody else.
Do you, just very briefly on that, do you think there's enough disposable income to push new markets in Berbice? Like, if I came in and I opened up a cafe serving nice coffee, it might not be it's not tradition for like maybe people, because Guyanese in general aren't coffee people. But, you know, if I came in and served like Colombian coffee or whatever in my nice coffee shop, is there like a market for that? Like, I'm just using it as an
I
example,
understand
you know,
you.
as
I
opposed
totally
to
understand.
as opposed to going and selling Polari or plantain chips.
I
Or
totally understand you. Yeah, and this is the same thing. So like I grew up in a very countryside area, very country. um, it's you're dealing with an old mindset, and so new ideas don't always land well on people out there. So you could have the best idea, but it just might not be the right market. So like for me, for example, the amount of Berbician clients I get, people living in Berbice, that would be by far my smallest percentage.
yeah,
And there's a lot of reasons for that. But even the idea of going into their literal backyard, Kanji Creek, and seeing the amazing beauty that's there is like it's just a no without even thinking. It's all too often just a no. They would, it seems like, rather spend that money to go to some other country, which is fine. You know, that's just their choice. But it's same thing. I'll give you an example. I have a pair of boots, and I've had these pair of boots for 15 years. They're double H. They're amazing. I paid like $350 for them, but that was a pair of boots that I bought once. I was recently talking to someone, and his boots had just split open. They were a lesser quality boot. And I asked, I said, well, how much are those boots? And he's like, oh, they're like $4,000. And I said, really? How long do they last? Oh, you know, I got to buy a couple every year. And so we sat down, we were just talking, we did the math. And he, you know, it quickly became apparent that he'd bought my pair of boots like 3 times.
no way.
Yeah, it's just crazy but that's a mentality as well. I think I find it very often in Berbice is they're not really, they don't care about quality, they care about the price.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous mentality because life is you pay now or you pay later. And you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So I think that's something else that is kind of common in Berbice. So you could have the best quality, you could have the best service, best product, but folks in Berbice sometimes might not be willing to pay for it. And that'll take some time to change.
Yeah. No, dude, I mean, this is like super interesting.
But I'm not saying that I don't want to be like a wet blanket on anybody's idea by saying that.
No.
It's just how I've lived there my whole time in Guyana, and it's kind of my observation.
But that's the only way you really change the culture, right? By shaking up the industry. You got to at least present the idea to them or whoever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good like case study because you know we hear a lot of Guyanese rely a lot on political rhetoric just to form their opinions, which is unfortunate. I mean, like just really talking about this in the open and yeah, it's interesting. I was, as a matter of fact, I was talking to a Berbice family the other day. I went for a job. I ended up in Berbice. And we were having duck curry by them. They make the most amazing duck curry. They have had the best duck curry in Berbice. And yeah, the wife was telling me that yeah, you know, like I feel like we're getting a lot more things. You know, we got some new gyms opening, some new hangout spots for the kids, and it sounded optimistic. You know, and I'm happy, and I hope it continues. Like it spurts, like it catalyzes a development trajectory, you know, or something.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows, like the youngsters like need the options, man. Like that's what's gonna pull them into this, you know, whatever time we're in.
Yeah, and like you said, it might not. This thing we're talking about might not happen with people who are already older generation. That's okay. But the kids are seeing it. They're seeing it on social media. They're seeing it on different movies. They're craving it. So, like you said, they're either going to grow up and move to Georgetown, which is what I see happening all the time, or they're going to grow up and try to go to another country, which is, as you know, is also a very common thing. But now they'll have the option to maybe grow up and stay in Berbice, and that would be awesome.
Yeah.
You know. So,
all right. Before I let you go, I was, you know, you talk about like your sort of qualifications in safety and stuff like that, and I can attest to how amazing you run your tour and how safe and professional it is. But I just know that you have a ton of stories about whether it's like, you know, close calls or people sort of, doing things they probably shouldn't, like clients,
Oh yeah.
I was wondering, like, what's one of your, if you can share, you don't have to tell me the worst one, but what's like one of the crazier experiences you've had doing a tour? Because I know, like, when you're out there, and I've experienced it a lot, just being out in the wilderness, or in these areas where things could get hairy really quickly, just based on the situation even.
Yeah.
I was hoping you could share an interesting story with me.
Yeah.
The kayaking one was nice, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure
yeah.
there's.
No, I will probably. I mean, there's many, like you said, that things. People have too much to drink and they fall over. I've seen that, and yeah, and it can be bad too. Depending on, like, if you fall from the bow of the boat and onto the back of the bench, it can crack your ribs, and I've seen things like that. But the worst one was last 2 years ago. 2 years ago, June, I think it was. I was near a fatality.
No way.
Yeah, and it was in the news. It was really sad. This boat, it was a little small. I think it was like 14 feet with a 50 horsepower Tohatsu. So it was a little boat, big engine, overloaded, 5 guys on it, and they come flying up the creek, and I'm just barely leaving my landing. In fact, I think it's like the Exxon Wives group, a whole group of women. It was like 10 ladies. In fact, my wife was even on the trip, because some of them knew her and they wanted her to come. So she came along. We were all just barely getting going. Well, I look back and I see this guy coming up the creek. So I slow down. I'm like, I'm not going to just jump out and go. Well, you could just kind of see, like, in his eyes, almost like he saw us and he was kind of wanting to show off almost a little bit. Well, he blasted past us. And just as he did, he hit the wake from my boat, right? Because I'd been moving.
Yeah.
And he hit the wake and just boom, came up in the air. 4 people went over one way, and the tiller handle threw him out the other way. And so I turned back immediately. I tell everybody, hey guys, we got a crash behind us. So I'm trying to flip this is my big boat I'm in. I'm trying to turn it around. And so my wife threw the bow line to one, saved one guy there. I was able to get a life ring to the guy at the back. Some of these Exxon folks have actually worked offshore, or did, I don't know. Anyway, so I could just sense in the moment, like, this one woman, she was jumping to action. Mm-hmm. So I called out, I need you at the front. I need you to throw that life ring. So she ended up throwing a life ring to another. And then the other guy was able to make it to the grassy edge. But unfortunately, one of them, he didn't make it.
No way.
And it was awful. Yeah, it was really, really sad.
But when they fell out the boat, they just hit the water wrong, or?
They just hit the water. And I mean, at first glance, they all drowned. That's how it looked. They all immediately, not one of them, I would say, is a good swimmer, and none of them were wearing their life jackets. Well, they don't even have life jackets. There was no life jackets on the boat. And the captain didn't even have a kill cord, so the boat just keeps running circles there.
No way.
He could have ran over any one of them.
Jesus.
He could have hit us. I mean, that's how, because he came from behind. It could have been bad, even worse than it was. It was bad. We lost a life, of someone I never got to meet, but I'm sure he was a fine young man from what I heard. And yeah, that was really sad. That was probably the darkest day for me out there in this that I've been doing. And definitely. But it actually leads me to something, if I can, just briefly.
Yes.
So I want to help with things that I can, right? Volunteer. I want to help. And so one of the things that we've done is we've been doing a lot to promote water safety. And so I'm going to show a picture now of an idea. It's very much up and coming, but it's a charitable arrangement. And what it is it's a life jacket that if somebody needs one, they can make it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to get this thing Coast Guard approved. This is a life-saving device for people who don't have access to PFDs. What it is, here, you could pass me that water bottle. All you have to do is take a shirt, any shirt, and you're going to sew pockets on it. And you take a bottle, any bottle, and we got plenty of bottles floating around in the water, and you take like 3 or 4 of them and you put them in there, and it becomes a life preserver. a personal flotation device. It also removes up to like 5 or 6 plastic bottles from the environment as well. So it kind of cleans up the environment. And the arrangement is going to be that, let's say you are a person and you just want access to it. The sewable plan, the sewing plan, is going to be free on our website. So anyone anywhere can download it. They can distribute it without, we don't have to talk to us at all. They just do it in any country for that matter. But if someone wants to donate, they can pay, let's say, I don't know exactly the price, but let's say it costs $1,000 to make one. I'm just making it up. I have no idea. They can donate and say, okay, I want to donate 10 of those. So $10,000 goes in. I take that money, goes to a seamstress, and she actually makes them. Mm-hmm. Then Blackwater Adventures will go and distribute those in places that have a need. And it might not just be river and communities. It might even be people like in Kanji, for example, those boys who like to go swimming in the backlands, It might be those guys. But we really wanted, that really motivated me to want to promote wearing life jackets big time, and just good judgment in general. But yeah, wearing life jackets is a big thing. So I'm excited to be working toward that as another thing we want to do.
Fantastic. Well, Dillon, my Guyanese brother, I thank you so much for coming, man. This has been fantastic.
Yeah.
It was like 10, I knew it was going to be good, but 10 times better. I just really enjoyed talking to you. I wish you nothing but success. I, hope to be in Berbice sometime soon. I hope we can have some duck curry and drink a beer.
Yeah.
Maybe go out on the water.
Yeah.
And, all the best for your future endeavors. Please keep pushing the boundaries of tourism and just sort of innovation. People like you is kind of what makes like our whole, like this industry go, and, inspiring other people like myself and people who see this. I really appreciate you coming, and hope you could come back soon.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Alex. It was nice talking to you.
Awesome.